I'm just thinking about the eukaryotic invasion and how it might function as a kind of analogy or a parallel to certain kinds of cognitive evolution or cognitive processes, ways of being. It's probably bogus science, but I just like the idea of it. I mean, the eukaryotic invasion is a particular moment, actually, in evolutionary history, when the entire world was really just single-celled organisms. That's pretty much the only life form there was, and it lasted for ages. And the very early single-celled organisms, what they call prokaryotic cells, were really, really simple. They were effectively just little sacs of cytoplasm, I guess, with kind of smart membranes around them, which made them function in ways which allowed them to survive, and they could split so they could reproduce. But they're basically, as I say, just smart sacs of cytoplasm, prokaryotic cells. And then somehow, I don't know how, so a couple of these prokaryotic cells got together and became more complex. But the way they got together is really interesting, because it seems that one cell either enveloped the other, or possibly one invaded the other, depending on which way you look at it. But either way, it became that one cell would exist inside a host cell or a parent cell. Host cell is right, isn't it? One cell inside a host cell, and it wasn't just that it lived in there a while and then died like a parasite. It's that it would function inside there, and its reproductive splitting, because cells split and divide to reproduce. Its reproductive splitting would coincide with the splitting of the host cell. So both cells, the internal one, what became the mitochondria, and the external cell, the host cell, split at the same time. So you get two cells, both of which have got another cell embedded within them. And as I say, these are eukaryotic cells. And they're very successful, because there's more variation. There's more variation in what's going on there, The relationships between the host and the occupier is more varied, so that gives them more opportunities to survive in different environments and be more adaptable and so on. So that was very successful as a process, and so eukaryotic cells really took off at that point. And again, for eons there was just these eukaryotics until multicellular organisms did a similar kind of leap forward. But just to stay with the eukaryotic invasion, this process by which two entities, one entity becomes embedded within another entity of the same kind, and functioning in that kind of way, they can do things that they couldn't do alone. I'm just thinking that as a parallel with certain kinds of mentation and cognition, and particularly to do with selfness. And I suppose here I'm just reminded, that the brain is such a weird organ, isn't it? And we've got these really old parts like the brainstem and the cerebellum and the basal ganglia and all those kind of things. And then we've got this modern part, which is this big balloon here of the prefrontal cortex, which seems to be relatively unique to humans. And that ballooning forepart allows us to do different things. It allows us to do symbolic language and to do self-reflection and all those kind of things. But the things it kind of does, it seems to me, is kind of duplicate what the self is. Because the self, and this is Antonio Damasio talking again here, that feeling of there being a self, a kind of centre of, if not narrative gravity, then at least experiential gravity, is probably to do with the brainstem. That's what Damasio says. The proto-self is the body responses, the information from the body coming up to the brainstem, and the brainstem forms a representation, and that representation is the proto-self on which it's built, and then emotions are laid on by the basal ganglia and so on. Okay, so you've got this self thing, and then but then we've got this other thing, this forebrain, which it seems to me at least, duplicating that, and then including its duplication inside the original. So you get like a self inside a self, rather than a cell inside a cell, like a eukaryotic thing. It seems to me we've got this self inside ourselves, because we haven't just got consciousness, have we? We've got self-reflexive consciousness. We don't just experience the world seamlessly in flow and go through it. We also feel ourselves doing those things, and can report on those things, and we can report on our own mental states as if we're somehow outside of those things, So it seems to me we've got this Matryoshka doll of self, we've got this one, this self, and then we've got this other self outside of it that can comment on it and report on it and do things with it and evaluate it and critique it and improve it and all those kind of things. It's a bit like this camera. I mean, I've been trying to think of a practical analogy, and the closest I've got is cameras. Cameras aren't perfect, but I've got this flip camera here, and I've also got this mobile phone, which has got a really crappy camera in it. I don't know if you can see that, but look, see, you can see the road down there, look, the path ahead. You see that? It's almost, that's what it feels like, I think, sometimes, being alive and awake. You can probably see me now. Can you see me? Hello. You see me alive and awake, represented inside its own representation. But there's essentially nothing different about the inside camera and the outside camera. This camera, the flip camera that's taking the big shot, and the little Nokia phone cam that's doing that thing of my dog now. You know, they're essentially doing the same thing, but the flip camera has this additional capacity of being outside of and enclosing and reporting on the state of the interior camera, the camera that's on the little screen there. And he's showing you a picture of Phoebe. What do I mean? Look, it's a walk and talk and talk, look. So I don't know if that makes any sense really, but that's the kind of an image I'm just playing with lightly here. That this consciousness, the withshousness, the with knowing, the with experiencing, is kind of analogous to the eukaryotic explosion, eukaryotic invasion, in which the self becomes the self inside a self, just like the cell becomes a cell inside a cell, with our primordial self being like the equivalent to the mitochondria inside the single-celled organisms, or something like that. Bye.